Hello, everyone. Very good afternoon. Good evening. And dear all, welcome to the technical session 7B. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the fifth international conference on information and communication technology for intelligent systems through Zoom on behalf of ICTI's 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. We are thankful to everyone present on this platform to go along with us digitally for the conference in this unpredictable circumstances of COVID-19 and making this conference more productive. Also, we wish everyone and their families a protected time, and we all will pass this together soon. We hope you will enjoy the last day of the knowledgeful and interactive session. Just before we get started, I would like to introduce you all to the chair of this session, Dr. Neha Tiwari. She is an assistant professor in Department of Computer Science and IT, the IIS University, Jaipur. She has more than 16 years of teaching experience and areas of her interest are computer programming, database, SQL, BBCAD, CAD, networking, Linux, Oracle, Java operating systems. Thank you so much, ma'am, for chairing the session. Now, I would like to start with.
Pleasure. Yeah, I can start it.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I would like to start with papers. Also, there is a special note for the presenters. You will be given 8 minutes presentation, and on the 7th minute, we will raise a gentle reminder. And also, I request you all, like other participants, to be on muted while the presentation is going on. Okay, our first presenter is Ms. Saroj Kaul, and her presentation is about decentralized content creation in digital learning, a blockchain concept.
Am I audible, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, thank you very much. And I may start. Okay, so myself, Dr. Saroj Kaul from OP Jindal Global University, NCR, New Delhi. I am presenting paper ID 321, and the topic is decentralized content creation in digital learning, a blockchain concept. So if you go to the introduction portion, e-learning platform is a brilliant integrator. It combines several stages of learning. The main stage includes creating learning, organizing, delivery, communication, collaboration, and finally, an assessment of the learning. So we understand and we all know that MOOC is a great example where adoption of courses has been emphasized, especially by the ongoing pandemic. While more content is now available, the quality of the content at the topic and at the lesson level has resulted in inconsistent delivery. So the motivation here is to propose a conceptual model, apply blockchain basics to e-learning. Let's have a look at the literature. So we have the references at the back, and they are also given in the document that is submitted to the August conference people. So Noor Hayati, number 2, in 2009, advocated that the learning process under e-learning is free from 2 constraints. One is space and time. Hussain et al. I may use my, yes, I can use my, yes. Yes, so Hussain et al, number 8, showcase the attempt of blockchains in e-learning. So now let us understand what basically blockchain means. So we have Dorostat, and he has collected several papers which have been an attempt to e-learning and something on blockchain. And he says he has culminated. It is a well-proven thing now. Blockchain is a technology on P2P platform. It is fully distributed, and every block has basically a header, a minimum 1 transaction. It is signed by the validator and linked to the previous block. So that happens here. So each block may have transactions made by many, many people. Now, this was a little bit part on the blockchain. We will go on to another part that is called as design thinking. So design thinking is a widely used concept in the past 50 years, and there are several applications which are documented through business, management, and engineering foray. And this is done by Mazout, now 15. Mazout in his textbook, several of them have been taking place. So what we are trying to do here is to link blockchain and design thinking. So as per definition, it is very clear here that it uses sensibility of the designer, it matches the people's need, looks at the technology, and then can convert into customer value. So we are looking at blockchain that can aid design thinking by enabling the participation of key stakeholders across space and time. So let's have a look at the proposed conceptual framework. So we have a wonderful author, Thoris. In 2011, he had attempted e-learning, and he said that it should facilitate an environment of evaluation, self-paced learning at an individual level. So at an individual level, two things are happening. So these courses can be thought of as modules. As each course, that means a course program, that is dependent upon ideas, the course structure, the content, the digitization plan, and finally its availability online to the learners. So what happens is there can be a few more things that we could add as blockchain is put into the concept. So there could be approved creators, they can customize, they can be used by selected learners, they can use other things like language specific requirements. So that means it is a wide domain, and we are trying to attempt the same through an experiment. So in our experiment, we have six different processes. It is a little bit hard to read here, but I will take you through the example that we have tried. It is a number of examples that we have tried, and it is provided in the document that is submitted to the conference, right? It is getting published now. Okay, taking the example that we would like to, what happened here? I have to go to the next page, please. Yes. So in this experiment, we are looking at a program in the supply chain management domain. It has been tested at 2 institutes of the faculties who have presented this concept. So even while teaching the same syllabus, it was found that the teachers differ in the quality and their level of proficiency on various lessons, topics under each module. So there is a diversity of expertise. Some faculty are very new, some faculty are old, experienced, they have industry background. So that means it is very granular, and it has an impact on the teaching effectiveness with respect to the quality and the quantity, the qualitative and the quantitative understanding of the topics for the learners. The learners here will be the students. So we have taken an example of supply chain management, as I said, and in that we have looked at certain specific levels. One is an inventory management, inventory models, then inventory planning, and let's have the framework that has been developed. So looking at the framework, this is a concept basically, and here we have the student at this place, we have the approvers, that means who are in the blockchain, who are working. These are the people who are contributing. These are the several types of faculties who are doing, and at each level, at the lesson, at the topic and the module level, the things happen. They will be at both. There will be going to a learner, and it will be the specific of all the teachers will be approved. Then at the learner's place, as he is looking at the topic level, he then submits his results and evaluations can be properly done. So same diagram now has been, excuse me, yeah, same diagram now has been shown as how it is happening. So we took health care operations management as the main topic under supply chain for the healthcare people and the researchers. Anybody can be here as the contributor, and it is a chapter on perishable inventory management. So that means here blood products, medicine, food products that can be taught to the students. But this falls under the topic of inventory management, that is dependent demand and how it is happening. So the student accesses it, he learns the topic, and if there is some new things that are happening here, so that can be appended, that can be added onto this topic after only the approver after it is approved. So these, when they complete their course, they again submit their results at specific. So that can be a midterm, that can be a class participation, that can be assignments, and all that comes in at this specific place. Okay, so coming to the last slide, this is an attempt of first kind in utilizing blockchain in developing content for e-learning. The application area is still evolving. There is a long way to achieve. There are multiple stakeholders. We need to understand each one of them, and it will definitely, if we get some funds grant, we have applied for a grant, and if it really works, and we have also applied for what is called as a patent for this small diagram. If it really works, then we will be able to find out the real thing. So decentralized digital learning systems will create new opportunities. It will bring in more new expertise. It will bring in experts together, and it can work on what is called as, in a blockchain, we talk about permissioned network. So everywhere you seek permission, and the emphasis there is selecting the best creators for the lesson. And at the lowest level, what we have done, we have used the design thinking. So that was how we do an idea, how we prepare basically our course plan. So by building these concepts, the rating at the lesson level, faculties would be encouraged, or they could be nudged to prepare better content, and that they know, right? And that meets the best and best of the total experiment, or of the total thing, and it would also meet the expectations of this specific institute. So finally, there is a paper here towards the end. I have to just put it up here, right, please? And he says here that policymakers on the requirement. So this is Hussain et al. It could be a type of only one institute is using, or it can be public on Coursera, on Upgrad, on MOOC, or it can be a combination of both of them. And basically the motivation comes from data integrity, interoperability, data privacy, data authentication, and data security. So basically I did talk about a concept of blockchain, which is at 3 levels, at the course level, then at the topic level, and at the smallest, which is design. We have used design thinking at the level of the what is called the lowest level of the plan. So I have to go to the next slide, please, and I do not know how to go. And finally, we have the references. I did speak about a couple of them here. Number 2, number 8, then we did talk about, it was included there in the presentation, and several months. Thank you very much. I hope I am in time.
Yeah, Saroj ma'am, this is Dr. Neha Tiwari here. Yeah, so that was a nice presentation indeed. I would just like to ask you one thing, that the concept of digital thinking has already been there, and same goes for e-learning. It's not a new concept. How do you think,
Yeah.
how do you think if we drop the idea of incorporating blockchain into the kind of framework you're talking about, if you drop the idea of using the blockchain, how will it impact your framework?
How will it impact the framework? So we have taken design thinking at the lowest level. So if I please go back to my one of my slides here, and
You just stay on this slide because there's a lot to ask on this only. The question is just one, that if we do away with the concept of blockchain from here,
okay.
what change or what deviation do you
So
think the framework?
very important. The change that you would expect from implementing blockchain idea is that finally you will have the best and best of the content. There would be 4 faculty, they would be providing the same topic, but based on the learner's experience, the learner's evaluation and rating, which topic is the best out of the 3 faculty who has taught the same topic, that would be approved. So you will get a better thing by using a blockchain technology, the idea of blockchain technology here. So faculty, there could be 3 to 4 faculties who are talking in, when we have looked into the course plans of several faculties who have been teaching inventory management. If this is, if my screen is shared, yes, and inventory management, 3 faculty are, they talk in their different way, they teach in their different styles. But what is important to the student, so that module should come. I made a mention that there is a lot of, everything is on the YouTube. This teacher is talking about one way, the other way, second teacher, third, but what is the best suitable for this student? So if it is put on.
So do you think that blockchain has the ability to
Yes,
create
please.
that
Blockchain has,
content?
yes.
Okay,
Blockchain has the ability. I am working on a project on fake, what is called as fake certificates that are being issued by universities, some of the universities, and
Yes,
how
yes.
do you authenticate? So basically, blockchain helps us in authenticating the real content.
It does, but then it slows down the entire process as well, because it's a complex concept.
Yes, that is what I made a mention, that there are multiple stakeholders, but it is a new concept. It is just only in 2020, we basically, the idea came in 2020 only, that it could be worked out. So the thing is, it is new, and if we get a grant, we will be able to do it, and it can be sent to different universities. And that is why it is on an individual basis. It can be on it can be federated, it can be individual university, it can be public, it can be private. So that would eventually come. Yes, it will take a couple of years, right? Even your Google Meet took about 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
thanks a lot.
Yeah. So
thank you
we
so
have
much.
so many things, right?
Okay,
Please.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question from the audience?
No.
Thank you.
Can we have the next one, please?
Yes. Thank you so much, Saroj ma'am. Our next presentation is from Ms. T.P. Rani, and her presentation is about data security in Internet of Things. But I guess she is not available, so we are moving ahead with our next presenter, And our next presentation is from Mr. Than D. Nugent. I'm sorry if I mistake pronunciation, and his paper is about information system continuous usage and empirical study of e-payment. He is also not available, so we are moving ahead. Our next presentation is from Mr. Akshay A. Menon, and his presentation is about scaling of rapid tests during pandemics using applications, conceptual resolving of irremediable COVID-19 circumstances. Pratithi. Okay. Okay, just a minute. He just joined. Hello, Akshay.
Hello.
Yeah, it's just your turn. So can you please start with your presentation?
Yeah, of course, sure. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Thank you, thank you. So, we have created an application named Praditi, which means hope. It's especially for this COVID situation, which helps to decrease the COVID pandemic. So basically, we decided to create such an application so that it will rapidly scale the rapid test of COVID-19. So myself, Akshay Menon, as aspirant of Amrita Vishwavidam, going to present a few or the methods that we inculcated to build up such an application. So the contents of this table includes the introduction part. So why do we need such an application? The problem statement, methodologies, and the results that we got from this from creating such an application. So why such an application? So we basically we created such an application so that it will adhere all the COVID controlling measures, especially social distancing, so that if the COVID vaccines could reach everyone, especially the people who are in fear, who doesn't approach the hospital for themselves to appear for a COVID rapid test. So if you talk about motivation, we got this motivation to create such a enormous good application, because we thought of as we were all restricted to our homes, we thought of creating such a project that it will help the people who can live in their normal life. So we thought of COVID pandemic situation. So how could we make it better for people? So basically, we thought that why does this COVID increase substantially? Because many people don't even go to hospital because they have a fear of getting COVID from themselves. So they don't apply for rapid tests as for themselves. So we based on these three main pillars, we built up this application. The first important point among the problem statements are the difficulty of rapid tests, because at the point of time, all the rapid tests were done at a particular location where many people are called together. So that would affect social gathering, which does not follow the COVID controlling measure. So if a person has a COVID and a person has another person has no COVID, both will come there and attend the test, and when the person have no COVID negative would get COVID positive finally. So that's a huge problem. So that is one of the problem statements. And the other two pillars are individual proper safety and assurance. Problems that currently occurs when going to the hospital and undergo COVID test. Application provides a person contactless social interaction. Basically, during a COVID situation, as I said, this application adheres all the controlling measures, especially social distancing. So if a person approaches a hospital and does not know what to do, this application will perfectly enable the person to adhere the controlling measures and do accordingly. So, and third pillar is like, for example, if this application will have all the information of the COVID patients. So it will be easy for the social workers to gather information rather than gathering information manually, going door by door. So we're going to step into the methodology part of the application. First, we're going to talk about platforms used. The platforms used are very simple but efficient because it is implemented in a good way. We used location tracking by using GA-API, and we used PHP framework to build this application. And we deployed this application in AWS environment. So the next part of the methodology is a simple algorithm but efficient. It's an algorithm called slot allocation algorithm, where the person who has COVID will request for a rapid test, and the people from the hospital can allocate that person accordingly the slot available in the hospital. So it's basically a small slot allocation algorithm. If the person cancels, as I said, after the payment is complete, the allocated slot will be confirmed. Thereby, the slots will be reduced to n-1, because if the slots are cancelled, slots are booked, the slot number will be reduced, and if the slot is cancelled, it can be limited. So it will basically work. And the second algorithm we use, it is already implemented in Google Maps. It's called GA-API. We use GA-API to determine the nearest location facility, lab facilities, for the person to come and go within minutes. Now I'm going to show the data flow, second level data flow of the application. So basically, the colored square determines the entities like the user and the lab admin. The circles represent the process, and the dotted lines represent the database. So basically, a user has to register if there is no account in the application. That's the basic part of getting into it. And after that, they have an option to take an appointment. If it's after clicking appointment, they can choose from 2 tests. That's the rapid test or the antigen test. They can choose any one of the tests. If they choose a test, it will show a list of labs near to the surroundings by implementing the GA-API algorithm from the location table, and they can select the lab name and lab location. By selecting that, it will automatically send a booking request to the lab admin. The lab admin has a power over the application, where they can see all the appointments booked in it. So they can see the appointment, and it's their choice to confirm or reject according to the slot allocated in that hospital. So if it is rejected, it will send an email. If it's confirmed, it will also send an email saying that the booking is confirmed. If the booking is confirmed, the lab admin will have the location ID of that user, so that the lab admin can send respective medical authorities to that person to get the sample collected. And after getting the test done, the user will get the email notification. So basically, this application has a huge scope. It's simple, functional, and relevant. So there are only 4 scopes of this application when implemented in the society. First of all, as I said, it will completely adhere social distancing, and it will have high privacy over the patients. So if the person is tested COVID positive, only the government or the respective hospital will know that the person has COVID positive, and the people will have less concerns and they can live their normal life, because many people don't know what to do if they're affected with COVID. So that's a good thing, because they are all continuously connected with the hospital authorities through this application. And the fourth most important is using this application, the respective governments can collect data of the COVID patients, and they could take substantial remedies. For example, if a place has to be quarantined, there has to be a minimum number of COVID patients there. So if we have the data there, they can take that action pretty fast.
Hello, Akshay. Sorry to interrupt you, but 1 last minute left for your presentation.
Okay, thank you. And after the result, we calculate, since there is no particular practically done application, we just stick down to the social distancing part, where social distancing is one of the controlling measures. So this is a graph, which is important, famous graph, flatten the curve. It is a graph of number of COVID patients at the time. So as you can see, social distancing is one of the protection measures implemented here. you can see that when this protective measure is implemented, the graph substantially decreases below the healthcare system capacity. So these are some of the reference that we top 5 references we referred to create such a research paper. And
I think you're done, Akshay.
yeah, it's one more slide.
Okay. So there are like few questions to you. How relevant do you think your app in today's scenario when we are witnessing that it has become, the COVID has become asymptomatic, and we can, also see many cases coming up where the report is negative, but still the person is positive and can pass on the disease very easily to others. So how do you think, like, what is the relevance of your app in this scenario? This is the first question. My second question would be, you have talked about the availability of beds in the hospitals, right? So and thirdly, you have also pointed out the collection of data, the stats.
Yes.
So right from the beginning, everything has been online, and the government has already maintained the database very well.
Yes.
As far as having the slots available for beds in hospitals is considered, they also, like many of the good hospitals, they already run certain applications which gives you a clear stats of all the availability of the rooms and the kinds of rooms which are available. So these three things are there that you have, like the first is the relevance of your app in current scenario. Secondly, the second and third point that you have pointed out, like collection of stats and availability of the beds. So they have all already been done and taken care of by the government already, and through various apps also. So from that perspective, you just have to justify yourself that how your app is different, and most important thing, the first point, that how relevant the app is in current scenarios.
Okay, ma'am. So basically, the relevance of my application is that at the present starting point of COVID, there was no such application as such, no such idea of maintaining a database for COVID. So that's when we thought of creating such an application. Basically,
Because you have also talked about vaccination, so vaccine is already out.
yes.
And then we initially also, we had an idea that the virus is mutating so much that we cannot have any kind of prediction, and that was the reason of delaying the vaccine, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it should have come across you over the period of a year. It's almost a year, and I think you should have, if in case incorporated those points and modified your app a bit, it would have been a better idea, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, we gathered information saying such that the current number of COVID positive people is not the correct amount of people who is affected. So we dig deep into it. So finding factors such as people not taking initiative to test. If someone has a fever, for example, if I have a fever, I'll simply ignore it as a fever. I may have COVID, so I will not, take my initiative to take COVID.
Contrary to that, I would interrupt you. Contrary to that, I think people have become more fearful, and the moment they have a common cold, they would immediately rush to have their test done. Right? This is the reality that we are facing.
Yes, ma'am. But
Yeah.
I
And
made
since
this
it has
application.
become asymptomatic, I don't think even the test is being done. There is no assurance of having a correct figure that how many are actually infected.
Ma'am, at presently, all these are implemented in our government. I assure you, I know that. But the thing is that in the starting stages of COVID-19, all these were not implemented. Small things were not implemented. People didn't pay attention to this. They didn't even wear masks.
Yeah,
So
I can understand that, but it's been like quite a long time now, and there's just a suggestion that if you try incorporating some points which would really contribute, then it can make your app a better one, right? So
sure,
I
ma'am.
would
Yes,
suggest to
we are
incorporate.
regularly
Yeah,
updating that.
yeah. So that was a nice idea. Thank you so much, Akshay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Akshay. So one of our presenter is back, Ms. T.P. Jani. Hello, ma'am. You can start the presentation now.
Yes, ma'am. I shall share my screen. Am I audible?
Yes.
So good evening to all. My is on author
Ma'am,
yes,
you are not properly audible.
that's me. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Data security in Internet of Things. Myself, Rani, and Suganti, we are the authors for the paper. So the abstract. We have concentrated on IoT. So IoT is the emerging trend using WSM. So IoT has proliferated into all walks of our life and into all applications. So that is why IoT is given more importance these days. And in IoT, form of clustering is used. So in order to cluster them together into groups and communicate with the communicate and to gather data, clustering is normally used. So these are the uses of clustering. So it reduces communication overhead and it is used for data aggregation in IoT. So where which applications it can be applied in those applications, for example, like gathering data in a case of a shopping mall, CCTV camera images, or temperature, right? Gathering temperature in area, right? So where in so those applications, the data aggregation can be applied. Clustering is also used. And we have concentrated in IoT in clustering in WSM. And here the exception algorithms, LML and DCML study on IoT using Puja's emulator. So we have
I would interrupt you for a while. You are not clearly audible. Like we can hear you, but it's not clear. Can you please move to the next slide?
am I audible now? Can you speak a bit loud so that I'm
Yeah,
audible?
yeah, you have to be a bit louder because once you start speaking in a flow, I'm not able to connect anything.
Okay, so IoT, we have concentrated in IoT, WSM, and data aggregation.
We have already gone through it, ma'am. Can you please switch to
Yes.
the next slide? Please skip this one and come to the next one. Yeah.
We have dealt with DCLMN algorithm, the group key establishment in WSM in the group nodes using DCLMN. But the drawback of DCLMN is that it suffers from the man-in-the-middle attack during the key exchange. And so this is the basic work of your DCLMN and the drawback in DCLMN. The other algorithms that we have worked, we have studied in related work to security kit, where the social networking is applied. And here the main drawback was that it was susceptible to brute force attack. So this is another work in related work we have studied. The next one is using Wobbly Share. where you have the concept of Bloom filters, where hashing is applied to transfer your data, and for your key purpose also your hashing is applied. And whenever you go for hashing concept, the solution occurs, right, for a particular value, a hash value that may be generated for two different data may be the same, and that there must be methods to overcome the hashing collision. So these are the different types of methods that can be applied in WSN. The proposed system. In proposed system, we have used clustering, and we have the asymmetric algorithm working. The purpose of clustering is to reduce the communication overhead, and then it communicates with the cluster head. It uses this encryption method using asymmetric method. So it encrypts using the private key and using the public key, and the decryption is done the other end, and the data is available in the cluster head where your data is accumulated and the data is transferred to the internet. So this is your IoT concept. So here this is the overall architecture diagram. uh, Central head, the cluster head, performs the data aggregation. All the nodes, peripheral nodes, sensors, IoT devices, they perform the data gathering for the different tasks that is assigned to them. Each have their own specific task. They encrypt the message, and using the verification process, and initial verification process, they get connected to the cluster head. The data, once it is arrived, the data is also verified whether it is from the authenticated nodes. And if the data is from the authenticated nodes, then the data analysis is performed on particular data, and then it is sent to the particular internet. So here private key generation is done by the cluster head, and here the assumption that is made is there are some secure parameters that is initially transmitted between the cluster head and the other nodes through a private secure gateway. So this is the global components that is being shared between the central head and the nodes. The particular keys that is being shared, it is a assumption that it is between the secure channel. The other data that is being transmitted, it is available, and that data, it is encrypted and sent, and the other end it is decrypted and received by the node. So it's the overall architecture diagram. So in case of encryption, your suppose say it is your two nodes. Using the private key, the encryption is done, and it is sent to the other end where it is obtained. The message is the message how it is being performed by using the parameters such as your GNP are securely shared earlier, and using that your message is encrypted and sent. For authentication purpose also, using the message itself, we can confirm whether it is from the authenticated node or not. For that, also we have the verification process. So once the message arrives, it is a two-step process where your data is also obtained, as well as whether it is from the authenticated node or not. That is also identified. So these are some of the parameters what we have performed, and the corresponding components or results that is obtained. So for example, your private key and public key and the signature components that is available for the particular parameters. So it is performed in Puja emulator. So it is something different from the simulator, that you have a component that is connected to the emulator, and the component, the Puja emulator, now it emulates, or it performs the similar using the similar.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one last minute left for your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Similar components are, there are many components, similar components are created, and you can analyze the results. Uh, Basically, your IoT or your WSN, right? The energy that is involved must be minimal. So this is the main constraint. So that is why we don't go for a very complex algorithm such as AES or DCS. And hence, here in this algorithm, the energy level that is spent is obtained, and it is much lesser when compared to the existing DTLM algorithm. And it also overcomes the drawback of DTLM such as man-in-the-middle attack, as well as the energy that is obtained is also minimal. So conclusion, IoT is generally used as an emerging field which is widely used, and here there is an increase in energy gain and it overcomes the drawback. So these are the references.
Okay, ma'am. So I would like to ask you a few questions. Like, what's the node? Like, what's the cluster size that you've taken for your work?
Here we have considered as 100, and in terms of 100, 100 nodes, 200 nodes, and 300 nodes.
100 and 300.
Emulator we have applied, so we have taken a one single component,
Okay,
and
so how did you decide on that? How did you decide on the size?
uh, size is actually in WSN, your number of components involved for clustering. Based on the number of nodes and their locality, you can group them into clusters. And based on the energy level of the cluster head also, so it is generally preferred to be minimal in size. And we have optimal size of around 20
Did
nodes
you find
into.
some impact on the results when the size of the clusters get increased? Like,
Yes, ma'am. When the size of the cluster increases, the cluster head energy level it decreases based on its way of communication, and
yeah, and
hence
apart from that, did you find any kind of uh, impact on the results?
we had worked on it, and we found that the energy level is minimal, and so we just confined to around 20 nodes in a particular cluster.
I could not see the snapshot of the emulator that you've shown, but why have you plotted the result in Excel? I think you've plotted it in Excel. I couldn't see it created in the Koja itself. Like, it provides you
Koja
to have.
actually it is available as in the end it's
Can you
available as
please
some.
get back to that slide, the result one, where you've shown the comparison? Yeah, this one. So this energy cost and number of nodes versus number of nodes. So um, have you compared both the algos depending on the energy cost?
The amount of energy that is available with the node
Yeah, but the idea initially was something else, isn't it?
for encryption purposes. No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And our next presentation is from Ms. Chandrava Heavy. Her presentation is about database building recognition and categorization of handwritten Kannada words using convolutional neural networks.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Okay, so
Am I
you
audible?
are okay.
Good afternoon, panel. So I'm Pradyumna. I'll be presenting on behalf of my professor Chandra Vahepi.
Okay.
So I'm also a co-author and I'll be presenting the presentation. Yeah. So I'll be giving a brief overview of our project. So So OCR is one of the most important fields in the field of computer vision, and especially the handwritten characters. The digitization of handwritten characters is an important problem because paper degrades, and it's important to digitize and index all the uh, handwritten text that we have. So, so we thought we can improve on prior art. So we have approached this problem. So from the literature survey, it was clear that there was no large-scale data set for handwritten words or characters for the language of Kannada, and so we thought we'll automate the process of creation of data sets for any language. So what we have done here is yeah. So our process can be applied on any number of data points. So we began with 370 sheets of handwritten Kannada text, identical words, which have guidelines. And a scanned copy of these 370 images were extracted and then processed further. Yeah. So the next one is pre-processing. So we extracted the images, we thresholded them and inverted the images and made them binary images. And then the grid lines were the guidelines which were used to uh, uh, guide the authors to write the words were removed using horizontal and vertical kernels. So we basically use convolution to get the mask of the grid lines, and then we remove them using subtraction. And then, so what we did was, if we look at the Kannada text, so Kannada text has words which have characters with spaces between them. So in order to overcome this problem, what we did was to extract the words from the images. We first used vertical projection profiles to obtain the histograms of the intensities across the lines, and using this we were able to perform line segmentation. And then in order to split the words themselves, uh, we use the dilated words where the characters are joined through morphological operations in order to extract the crop parameters. So the crop parameters are nothing but the xy coordinates of the bounding box of each word. So this was then used along with the index of the position of the word in the order of the xy coordinates in order to assign the words to its own class. So this resulted in a data set of around 65,000 words, and we have around 2,210 classes. So this is about the extraction of the data set. Yeah, so some of the uh, imperfections in the words resulted in some loss of data, but the process is automated and can be used on a large scale, can be used on any uh, text. So it's easily scalable, and the amount of rejected data is negligible compared to the amount of useful data that we get. So this is the data set. Yeah. So then in order to prove the efficacy of our data set, we trained some simple convolutional neural networks on the data set. So what we did was we resized all the images to 300 by 300 spatial dimensions, spatial resolution, and then we used a convolutional neural network with around 6 convolutional layers of kernel size 3, and with increasing number of filters. And at the end it was a bunch of fully connected layers in order to act as the classifying guide, and dropout regularization was used to prevent overfitting. So, and we used the categorical cross entropy loss in order to train the neural network. And we achieved an accuracy of 91.9% on this task. We also trained another similar model with a similar architecture, but with different class labels. And we achieved an accuracy of 93.32. Here, the number of classes were reduced just to see how it improves with reduction in number of classes. And then, yeah, all models were trained on an 80-20 split with stratification based on the Y labels. This is just to prevent the imbalance in the classes between the train and test splits. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the accuracy of various categories. So on average, it's around 93% accuracy. Yeah. And the highest performing one is birds. And yeah. Yeah. And the word we have picked around 10 random words just to show the accuracies. So yeah, this is the accuracy values for different classes. Yeah, and there were some three papers that were there were three prior that were working on word recognition in Kannada, and as you can see, the data set size of the previous works they're very small. This is because usually there is a lot of manual annotation involved. But since our data set generation process is totally automated, we have a huge data and it can be easily scaled to a much larger data set. So we just need a bunch of uh, guided handwritten texts, which can be converted into data sets. So we can see an improvement because of the increase in the size of the data set. Yeah. So in summary, we have created a data set from handwritten Kannada text, and it has around 210 classes We also tried reducing the number of classes, and it resulted in an increase in accuracy of 2%. And yeah, that's it. Yeah, these are the references. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, Pratibhan, I would like to ask, did you go through the papers like many researches have been done quite equivalent to the kind of work that you have done?
Yes, ma'am, but we wanted to concentrate on Kannada, and there were not many works in Kannada uh, that do this. So that
Where
is
have
what.
you implemented it?
Ma'am, shall I answer on behalf of him?
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yeah. Actually, there are a lot of works when we consider for the foreign languages and also for some of the Indian languages, mainly for Devanagari and Bangla. When we consider for the language Kannada, only a small number of works have been reported. And the
But
data set,
only the language has changed, ma'am. Like many people have done it in Gujarati and other.
yeah, there are a lot of works for Indian languages like Gujarati, we have Bangla, we have Devanagari, we have Malayalam, we have. So we have gone through all the literature survey. So there are works that are reported, but when we have picked up the regional language, as we are from Karnataka, we wanted to work on the language of our state. So we picked up this work.
No, that's absolutely fine. But I just
Huh.
want to know what kind of innovation, as per the kind of
Huh.
methodology that you have opted for, have you brought in your work? That was the main question. And where have you implemented it? Like I could see the results plotted in Excel, but where actually have you implemented the work?
We have
So
used this one, Keras, using the OpenCV, we have implemented this.
All right. Okay, but do consider the kind of methodology that people have opted, and please try to bring in some kind of novelty as far as the incorporation of new algorithms or new methodologies considered for your work. So that would really be appreciable.
When we consider methodology, many of the authors are using the convolution neural networks, but they are using for their own data sets. So we thought we are using for our own data set that we have created.
Okay. And how have you done that?
The data set we have created by ourselves by collecting the data from different people, and
Manually. That has been done manually entirely.
manually we distributed a set of sheets to the people.
Okay.
We got it written and we went to
You
some
must
schools.
have some kind of uh,
uh,
area in your mind, or the kind of like the data set that you're working on. There
so
should have been some kind of size limitation to it.
So
sites
may I add a little? So basically, we collected the images. So the images that we collected were handmade for this particular project, but it is not necessary that the same pattern should be followed. So basically, what is we are extracting the words from images, and then automatically, yeah, it's basically automatically extracting images from the words from the images, and then creating a data set out of it. So the only manual labeling part is getting and scanning the images. After that, it's all automated.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presentation is from Mr. Dinesh Shravan Datar, and his presentation is about effect of meditation on human emotion based on EEG signal. But I guess he is not available. So we are moving ahead with our next presentation, and the presentation is from Ms. Rashmi Dikshit, and her presentation is about enhancement and security for intercloud scenario with the help of role-based access control model.
Yeah, good evening, one and all. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So good evening one and all. Myself Rashmi Dikshit along with my guide Dr. K. Ravindranath presenting here the presentation for enhancement in security for intercloud scenario with the help of role-based access control model. So these are the content or the general outline of the presentation. We will start with introduction, then research graph, then objective, literature review, system architecture, workflow, and finally result and discussion with conclusion. So introduction, as we there is a no need to discuss what is a cloud, what how the security is achieved in a cloud. When we are saying cloud, moving data from one cloud service provider to another, that is common. Only applying encryption is not sufficient because the multiple copies of the same data is available. And how to apply policies as the owner is at one place and the data may be at another cloud service space. So how to apply rule based approach, what to do with that data. So these are the research gap. So plugin mechanism for a cloud service provider, authorization decision taken by data owner, multiple encrypted copies in a data centric approach, attribute based encryption, encrypted ciphertext is labeled with a set of attributes, user with their set of attributes able to access data, restrictions on the level of expressiveness, and ontology based resource management in the cloud. So what are the objectives for this particular work? Improved identity-based proxy re-encryption technique for third-party data sharing and efficiency. Data-centric rule-based approach with a role-based access control model for authorization rule. To extend privileges of authorization model with a modify and delete, etc. And provide semantic authorization in cloud computing. So lots of literature review with author methodology, somewhat disadvantage, somewhat advantages is already done. And now here comes the system architecture, how that system will work. So this particular figure shows the proposed architecture. Data owner, while uploading data to the cloud, generates self-protected package which contain three things: encrypted data, access control definition in the form of authorization rule, and keys required for the encryption. Data owner, before moving data to the cloud, perform encryption using random symmetric key generated to provide security. Key which is used for the encryption of data is also encrypted. And asymmetric algorithm AES is used, which is more sufficient. Then next thing is authorization model, which contain rules to provide access control. After the evaluation of rules, keys for re-encryption are generated. Data owner is the only responsible for the help of generator and identities of the element. Identity-based scheme is used. Identity-based scheme is used to generate keys for the re-encryption, which avoids extra attributes and storage requirement. And after getting green signal only in the form of re-encryption key, ultimate user is also able to perform any operation. Cloud service provider is not able to perform any misbehavior with the data or access of the data, and this result in data-centric solution as data carries all required things with itself only either in the same service provider or intercloud scenario. Now, as you can see that there are two components. The one is policy decision point and another one is policy decision point to control the authorization model and the proxy re-encryption to perform all the cryptography related action. Authorized cloud service provider communicates with these components to run smoothly all cryptographic operation, and each and every package deployed by the data owner is placed at the database system of the service provider with all things related to that object. Okay, now the next part is first part, identity-based proxy re-encryption. As we have already known what happens in proxy re-encryption, means third-party entity proxy which re-encrypt the already encrypted text, and here for that particular identity-based proxy re-encryption is used. Now, how that identity-based proxy re-encryption takes place? So one-way, non-interactive and multi-use features are satisfied because of the identity-based proxy encryption. The management of proxy with IBA bypass the requirement of the public and private key pair. Instead, straight the identities can be worn within the cryptographic activity. Fusion of IB and PRE makes third party to again encrypt a cipher using the identity of a particular user, that is a re-encryption with the identity of another one. And in this way, identities of the user are also used by master secret directory to develop a secret key, and secret key use are identical to the private keys in IBE. And these are the steps to perform the identity-based proxy re-encryption. Now, after that, what happens with access control system? Authorization model with high expressiveness is described, which manages advanced characteristic like access control based on a role. And semantic web technology have the capability to build formal logic, and this is used by control model. Access control model use this capability to design the infrastructure beneath an authorization model. It also controls the resource access in the cloud by employing rule. And moreover, model with a trust to define fine-grained access regarding available information for a particular. An authorization model is implemented to control unauthorized data access, and to implement this particular, to grant particular rights to user, concept of role is used, which is defined using ontology, means in ontology, defined in ontology web language and semantic web rule language, which are formal methods, and they enable the usage of reasoner to infer new knowledge. Now the next, this is an authorization concept. How different privileges are given to that particular identity depends on the role, and how that privileges are stored. Now, roles can be written in a simple language, in a simple SQL. Now, user doesn't bother about how that rules takes place. They can write simple SQL query, and the rules select any role having some associate privileges. It also selects any identity which is a member of that role, and any privileges granted to the role is also granted to the identities belonging to that role. And this model will be placed in a AS. So interceptor, semantic authorization service. There are two things in semantic authorization service: authorization engine and trust manager, and then monitoring. And these are the result analysis. Okay, so by taking the different samples, the time authorization decision time has taken. So it has been observed that the more time is for the execution of query, no matter whatever the number of population, whatever the individual present in that population, authorization chain and re-encryption keys have same time. Last but not least, conclusion. An authorization model suitable for cloud computing model overcomes some of the limitations in expressiveness available in its preceders, and providing support for RBAC and semantic web technologies have been useful for describing authorization model. So these are the references. Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Ma'am, any questions?
Yeah. So, Rashmi,
Yeah.
I can see you have taken certain papers from 2009 also.
Yeah,
Don't you
yeah.
think cloud is a technology that keeps changing so immensely and dynamically that considering a work that has been done 5 years back, or let's say 10 years back, will not have much connectivity with what you want to implement or what you want to perform?
Okay.
I asked my question, Rashmi. I have asked you, like in your reference papers, I could see papers.
Yeah. I started with 2009 up to 2019. And whatever the research gap, I club according to that the different literature review papers.
So, do you think you have considered all the gaps that have been a part of this decade?
all the gaps is not possible. I am doing a research work, so whatever feasible for me, I am trying to find out,
All
because
right.
it is
So,
cloud
what,
computing.
yeah. So, how have you decided, like, what are the problem areas, or what are the scenarios that you must consider for it? How did you decide on that?
Yeah. So by reading or by studying these different papers up to the means 2019, I am trying to evaluate the research gap. 1 minute. Huh? So as we have discussed that cloud service provider, the data may be in the same cloud scenario or in another cloud scenario, and data owner will not be available at any means 24/7 to find out the whatever the rules or whatever the access control possible for that particular user. So it's means if we plug, that means plugin mechanism is not possible with cloud service provider, because data may be in the same cloud or in a different cloud, and data owner will not be
So,
with
what made you think that you must consider this problem scenario for your work and not others? See, there has to be some objectivity of the kind of work, research work that we take up, right?
Huh.
And we decide it on the basis of some very, very important reasons.
Huh.
So, how, like, what do you think made you feel that you must take this particular problem for your work?
Because nowadays cloud is so common, but security is not much achieved with the cloud.
Do you really think so?
Actually,
A lot has been like done
yeah,
in
lot
this.
has been already
Yeah.
going on. Google Cloud is providing 99.99% security, but for providing security, I'm trying from my side.
No, that is not the thing. Like, if Google is providing something, saying that it's 99.99, so we must also try something and come up with a solution. This should not be the kind of reason behind us taking a particular problem for our research work. I would ask you to, are you a research scholar?
Yeah,
So please discuss it freely with your research guide,
yeah.
that what exactly motivated you and why have you taken this particular problem, and
Yeah.
how can your research be a contribution to the society if you
Okay.
complete it. All right? Okay,
Nice
thanks.
suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Really, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rashmi Dikshit.
Yeah.
Okay, so as our all presentations are done, we are moving ahead with closing remarks. I sincerely thank our authors for their excellent presentation in this session, and all our participants for being a part of this international conference. I hope this session was informative enough. All the presenters would be getting their digital certificates through email within 2 working days. Further, all the papers have already have already forwarded to the Springer, and the publication will be live within 5 to 6 months. So kindly cooperate with the team of ICTI's 2021. Also, I thank our session chair for chairing the session. A token of appreciation to the chair on behalf of Team ICTI's 2021 and Global Knowledge Research Foundation. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable presence.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure is all mine. Congratulations to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, I request you all to on the camera so we can take a quick snapshot for our virtual conference.
I'm so sorry I won't be able to do that because I'm already in a meeting right now. So
Okay,
that's
fine.
good for me. Yeah.
No worries, ma'am. Okay, so thank you very much. Stay safe and take care.
Thanks a lot.
Goodbye, ma'am.
Goodbye. Thank you.